Well, I think it is a very important visit. Number one, it's actually two visits rolled into one, or two engagements rolled into one. Number one, Mr. President was honored with a state visit to China, hosted by President Xi Jinping. And secondly, of course, there's the Forum on China and Africa Cooperation, FOCAC. So there were two consecutive events. Number one, the state visit meant a focus between China and Nigeria on intensifying cooperation across all spheres, the political, the economic, and of course, the social, cultural. So in terms of the political, there was commitment to joining forces and speaking with one voice, with a common front across multilateral organizations such as in the UN and so forth. And then secondly, in terms of the economic and financial, there was discussion and there were a number of agreements reached on infrastructure development, in particular road, rail, seaports. And here it's important to point out, because we're always focusing on lending and borrowing activity, in this case, there was important emphasis on foreign direct investment from China to Nigeria. For example, the Lekki port is actually a foreign direct investment by a Chinese company. They were also participated in the construction of the port, but also the financing on an equity basis. And that's what we need to see more of. Equity financing by domestic investors, by foreign investors. That's the whole point of Mr. President's agenda of stabilizing the Nigerian economy so that investors can come in, help it grow, create jobs, and of course, reduce poverty, which is the overall goal of macroeconomic policy and development as a whole. And that's something that President Xi Jinping and President Bola Ahmed Tinubu were clear on, that their ultimate goal is to develop the economies and reduce poverty. So that was specifically the part of these engagements. That was a state visit. And of course, were very warmly received by the president of the People's Republic of China and indeed his whole entourage. Secondly, there was the Forum on Cooperation between China and Africa, FOCAC, and that of course meant about 50 heads of state were here. And what happened there was that the Chinese president, he re-emphasized, one, the need for and his initiatives for global security, for global development, and indeed for global civilization. And in a nutshell, he was focusing on renewing and strengthening and even re-energizing with additional funding, $50 billion over 3 years, as well as some other specific initiatives aimed at mutual development, mutual cooperation, and in fact, development of the African continent as an important part of what we call the Global South. Interestingly, modern as it is, and with all the engineering prowess that it possesses, and with all the advancement that is achieved, China still talks of itself as a developing country, as part of the South. And really, when you look at GDP per capita, China is developing or smaller in terms of GDP per capita than some of its Asian neighbors, the Koreas, Singapores, and so on of this world. But in every other sense, it is a modern economy. And there was focus strong focus on modernization with a human touch, and he spoke of factors and elements that would touch the heart of any partner. He talked about in terms of the push for global, for modernization of the developing world. He said that the path to development should be one that leaves nobody behind, that leaves no nation behind. So it was very much a rousing speech at the opening ceremony by President Xi Jinping that warmed the hearts of many people and held good prospects for China-Africa cooperation across cultural exchanges, training, human development, health, and of course, the all-important modernization of African economies through infrastructure development across all the frontiers, ports, railways, roads, bridges, and indeed the agricultural sector. So it was all-encompassing. The Nigerian delegation, led by His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, included the governors of Kaduna, Kwara, Lagos, Niger, and senators, amongst others. And we've had very, very full engagements and very specific discussions with not just organizations here that do the lending, like the China Development Bank, China Exim Bank, but in particular, organizations that are in charge of investing equity. And so the conversations continue, and it has been a very worthwhile engagement. And if we look at some of the transactions that have been signed, there's an important gas and methanol project going up at Brass in Bayelsa State, among so many others. And overall, it has been time well spent. And now, of course, the all-important follow-up is what is next on the agenda, and is what we expect to happen next. Strong follow-up on the initiatives, strong follow-up on the agreements and the memorandums of understanding that have been signed, and of course, a boost to growth and development of the Nigerian economy. Around 1990, I think the GDP per capita of Nigeria was actually ahead of China's, but they have since left us behind. And the lesson is that we have a lot of catching up to do, but they have done it in a relatively few number of years, in a couple of decades or so. And so that should be our own objective. That should be the example that we must look to follow, that we must have rapid, sustained, and inclusive growth year after year for a decade, for 2 decades. And then that will take us to the kind of modernity, the kind of advance, the kind of lifting of people out of poverty on a massive scale. They have achieved it here, and that indeed is the objective of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. In terms of the domestic economy, all the signs are that, yes, the corner is being turned. GDP in two quarters has grown, has increased, and it is above population growth. So it means that there is progress in that important front. Likewise, inflation has started coming down. The reserves are building up. The trade balance is positive. The current account is positive. So we don't have any balance of payments problem as such. And of course, we are looking to for the exchange rate to continue to stabilize. And eventually, that should be able to lead to a lowering of interest rates, which again would give a boost to domestic investment. And the key, what China has done and what is achieved, the key is investment, domestic investment, attraction of foreign direct investment that creates jobs, that increases productivity and grows the economy and reduces poverty. So that is the clear goal and target. And to date, there has been progress, and we just need a bigger, more momentum in the direction that we are already going. And one of the things that has given confidence at this time is we have just completed, in in I would say in the completion stages of an important domestic issue of dollar bonds. And what that does is that it shows the resilience. The success of it will show the resilience of the Nigerian economy and the ability of Nigerians to depend on their own resources, the ability of the government to attract with its policies savings of Nigerians from abroad. Whether they be Nigerians living in Nigeria who are keeping money abroad, or whether it be Nigerians living abroad who now decide to save some of their money in the Nigerian economy. It is the ability to attract resources for investment that is the key to rapid development. And all the signs are positive in that direction.